All right, everybody. Welcome to the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss here, of course, with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
And we have with us a returning guest. This show has gained a lot of subscribers and viewers since we had this man last on. But for those of you who are new to the show, this might be your first time seeing him here. But it's very likely that you've heard of Joey Holz before. Joey Holz, about a year ago today, went viral with a labor shortage experiment that was covered in Business Insider. You might know him as the Florida man who did an experiment and applied to 60 jobs, landing just one interview. That was the first phase of a continuing labor study, a sort of grassroots labor study that he has done. And he's been a guest on our show many times since. Joey Holz. Joey, it's great to see you again, man, and it's great to see that you're safe down there.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to be back on with you guys. It has been a while, and I was one of the lucky few who has come through the storm okay. A lot of it's a lot of people got a lot worse than I did.
Yeah, well, let me set this up. For those who don't know, Joey lives in Fort Myers, Florida. The wreckage down there after Hurricane Ian is just unthinkable. You showed me some images that I'm going to put up on the screen later just to give everybody an idea of this. But you are sitting outside on a fallen tree now, as I understand it, correct?
Yeah, I'm getting the best signal from this tree. So if you see me like slide off the side, it's only like 3 or 4 foot to the ground, but we were lucky that it didn't fall the other way. It's but the lighting's good out here.
It's great, and you're outside for good reason. You are housing people in your home, right? People who had no place to go after the storm hit. They're in your house, getting showers, getting food, getting water, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, it's actually it's not even my house, and I'm more than happy. They've been so helpful to me, and once our power and water came back on, we opened our doors to just anyone who is still without water and power in the area that we know, and it's been you know it's been good to have people around finally. It's been sort of rough with the well system. The power powers the water, so with no power there's no water here, and it's a lot.
Yeah, so talk to me about this storm. I was talking to you offline earlier that maybe it's because I don't consume media much anymore, at least not mainstream media, and I never watch the news on TV anymore. But I remember after uh, Katrina hit, excuse me, in 2005. That was the talk of the nation for weeks and weeks afterwards. When Sandy hit in 2012, that was the talk of the nation for weeks and weeks afterwards. It sort of upstaged the presidential vote that happened just basically a week after Sandy hit. That was the talk of the country. And I don't feel like this is. Once again, that could be just a subjective experience on my part because I don't watch the news anymore. I watch media that's curated to me online. Um, but I don't know if people have become desensitized to these storms because they've become so common. But this seems to be bigger than all of these. This seems to be the biggest one in quite some time. You were talking to me. This is probably the biggest one since Andrew, which was 1992. You told me, right?
Yeah, and if you look at the chart of them as far as the amount of damages, Andrews barely even in the top 10. I would even say it's now after this, it's not even in the top 10 anymore. But to my personal experience, I was 8 years old in Homestead, which was ground zero in a trailer park for that. So that was 30 years ago. This year we celebrated the anniversary of that on the 24th of August, and since then, like, the FEMA response times have gone up, like the news cycles have shortened immensely. So the experience as a kid in that, and it's like, nowadays a kid one day inside with no power seems like forever, but as an 8-year-old in a tent for 10 months after this storm, right, where still to this day, like, that was one of the longest, and like, they got people in as quick as they could. They did what they did, but the infrastructures that FEMA has now, I don't know, there's a chopper flying over. The infrastructures that FEMA has right now are so much more timely than what we had before. Before Andrew, the Florida building codes didn't exist. All these things that protected a lot of homes and lives, all things considered. But the Fort Myers Beach was wiped literally off the map. But like you mentioned those images earlier, it's a huge contract. The beach has overtaken the roads. I have friends that died. I won't mention them on here. I still don't know whose families have been notified, but I've already gotten reports. And I think the last official death toll I saw was in the 60s or 70s. And I'm sort of shielded from that. I'm on like the opposite side of I-75 where the storm surge didn't reach where we're at. So we got the Cat 4 hurricane winds, and we got the edge of that. The South Cape Coral area, Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel Causeway completely collapsed, and there was people on those islands. There were people on boats out there. I had friends on boats in Key West that are missing now. Like it's and this is an ongoing thing that I'm not sure what the outside news cycle is like too. Like you said, I didn't even have strong internet signal or any cell signals in the area until yesterday around 4 or 5 p.m. And then as soon as we started getting a hold of people and hearing that come in, like we're like, we have power and water, come shower, come eat food, whatever you need, we have AC, come together and help each other out.
Yeah, I want to show these images that you sent me here. These are pretty extraordinary. So this is a before picture from, I guess, a Google Earth type satellite image.
Yeah, I pulled it from Google Maps.
You pulled it from Google Maps, so that's before the hurricane. And then the after photo, this is the exact same area. This is what that looks like now. I mean,
And
gone.
that's Times Square, Fort Myers Beach. That was there was a pier there. There was a line of restaurants in that lower left corner. It was there was human habitation there less than a week ago.
Wow.
And
So
that's one of that's one of several areas. There's an island north of here called Pine Island that the bridges are washed out of. Matlaka's pretty washed out. Sanibel, Captiva, pretty much our entire line of barrier islands, and that's just here in Lee County, and we're one of several Florida counties affected. Not to mention it went and hit South Carolina. I haven't even heard what happened there.
yeah, I mean, you're just probably coming back online. When a thing like this happens, you don't even really know the extent of the damage because you're offline, right? I mean, there's no way to get that information really.
Yeah, and when I was out in the area where there was internet, I was working the whole time, so I didn't even have a chance to catch my breath or reach out or respond to most messages, and then I at least got to read through, and send some texts off. It was, the further inland you went, the better things were to an extent.
Russell, did you have anything?
Yeah. So a lot of the news coverage on this, as predictably focused in on trivia, but Don Lemon, who's having a very bad month, brought up the climate change issue, was actually shut down by a meteorologist, and fairly enough, because the meteorologist was very concerned about the horrible thing that was about to happen to Florida and just wasn't interested in getting into spinning it into any particular agenda. And finally, really shut down Don Lemon, almost yelling at him, like, you can't demonstrate that climate change is responsible for any particular hurricane. We can't say that this one is because of climate change. But clearly, Joey, living in that region of the country, far be it from me to defend Don Lemon, but being from that part of the country, as you're saying, Andrew was the biggest news story in the world at that time, because
it's not even top 10
unusual.
Now.
Right. It was unusual. So yes, maybe you can't say about any one particular weather event that it's climate change, but you can certainly say there's a pattern of increasingly intense and constant hurricanes to the point that it's not even a huge news story anymore. I think the story that came out of this that got the most exposure was the shark swimming through the neighborhood. Everybody saw that video. I don't even know if you saw it because you're actually in the middle of this disaster.
Yeah,
But
I didn't. I actually did finally today when all the people and kids were over. I did see that one finally. I have an image I saw where someone's sliding glass door is up to, where my shoulder height would be, is the ocean on the outside of it,
right.
and things like that. And then that one image I shared of there's the set of 3 pictures I sent you guys down the street from that Times Square. I used to deliver produce to this bar, right? And then the only piece of it left is the word junk from their sign. They used to be called Junkanoo. And it's absolutely mind blowing. I went to elementary school on that beach, and it's just, this happens. We had 2004, 2005, 4 hurricanes. We had was it 2017? We had 3 complete hurricane disasters. I was looking at it wasn't the climate report. It was the threats report, I want to say it is. I should have emailed that too. I was just in the middle of reading that when I logged in with you guys. But when you look at how long it took to recover from each storm on this chart as it goes, Andrew was like, it was like a 10 to 12 year span, but everything that happened in the past, say 12 to 13 years, while we were still just finishing recovering from Andrew in places as a state, the entire every other storm that had happened was still under recovery efforts in those areas in some ways. Like when the Irma news cycle was over and everyone else was like, oh, Key West must be fine now, like Big Pine Key and Marathon and all those places, those houses were gone. They didn't just pop back up after 3 weeks, right? Like it's anywhere from, years and years of rebuilding, and the amount of people homeless and that have lost all of these things, it's going to be astronomical to recover from financially, and emotionally as people, right? Like I've got PTSD from Andrew when they just keep piling these things on me. It's, sometimes I handle it well, sometimes I don't. Like I've been a manic mess for a week.
Wow.
You lose sleep, you lose track of time, you lose a sense of safety, and it's as normalcy comes back, it's a whole different thing. Then you have the fist fights over pub subs, right? You have people brandishing guns at each other in lines over gasoline. And then, these are the little stories that get out there, the bad stuff. But for every one of those you see, you've got the neighborhood feeding each other and helping each other out. So, and they don't, I do like that I've seen, and maybe, it's a change in the way they report things, but seeing the ways that they're helping highlight the community coming together, as opposed to, fetishizing the violence of the divisive issues that happens.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. And obviously in the coming weeks, you're going to start to see the aftermath, which is when, stories come out like the ones you talked about, and it's also when people hopefully at least get enough of their lives back that they start paying attention to how good a job is being done to help rebuild not only in their community but elsewhere throughout the state. I mean, the thing about Florida is it's a long, narrow state, and so like this storm obviously hit your area extremely hard, but it also hit the east coast of the state extremely hard, all the way up to Tampa.
Yeah,
I know
it
some
went
people up in
straight
Tampa.
across.
Yeah, I mean so this is just going to be a gargantuan relief effort that's going to take real coordination, and it's going to be a real test for Ron DeSantis heading into a governor's race that, people don't necessarily know this because they assume since he's going to run for president that he's a shoo-in to be re-elected as governor. But, Florida still, as much as it's trended red, it's still, a relatively what we would call a swing state. Charlie Crist is within about 5 points. So what do you think? I mean, it's hard to think about this now, I'm sure, because you don't know yet. You just got online this afternoon. But what are your expectations about that, about how this could affect your wannabe superstar governor there?
When I was preparing for the storm, it was the first time that I ever told someone, shut up, I'm busy watching Ron DeSantis speak, right? Like, You know what I mean? Like there,
You're not
I needed,
signed up for the campaign.
I no, but I
No.
needed the information that was coming from them because the storm people were taking seriously, and so I was listening to see if he'd say anything useful. And after he spouted off his corporate endorsement things, I guess he mentioned Expedia like 3 times, I think. So he must have a deal with them or whatever. The Gas Buddy app actually ended up being real useful. You know, users reporting where gas is located. You know, people are running life-saving equipment on generators. The health park hospital here is that their water's gone. They have patients shitting in bags, according to the NBC2 news reporters. I don't know how. You never know what parts of this are like from just local and what's going national on that. But it's been a whole. I needed the information from that. Once the weather people came on after him and the emergency management officials, you know, and they gave the actual info you needed when you couldn't call 911. Once the winds reached 45 miles per hour, the police aren't coming to you. The ambulances can't come to you. And then in the reaction to this storm, the governor's race is very much going to depend on how well the voters are given access to reach the polls when it happens, and B, what he did to actually help Floridians, because you know we all know that politicians love hearing themselves talk, and until they do the things, I don't give a flying fuck, and I'm never going to vote for him, but I want in my heart, I hope that this government that is supposed to help us in a situation like this, and they have all these systems, we spend these billions of dollars for preparedness for this, right? I really hope that all of that's going to be utilized effectively to return I think it was almost 1 million people without power in the area where I'm at first. And they're getting them on slowly, but the friends coming in, they said the lineman on their street said it's going to be 2 to 4 months before they're to this. Like there's entire sections of the grid completely wiped out. I'm actually 1.5 miles from where all the linemen are staging. So I'm watching, you know, I can hear the trucks going in and out all day. You can see them working on the stuff out there. That's probably, you know, if they started here and they're working their way towards the coast, then I might have just lucked out from proximity, right? Like first stop, oh, hey, we're not going to all drive past that down line, so let's just get that out of the way, sort of deal. But they've been doing what they can. But any place that's not on city water, well water, that runs on power, right? If you do something with your well system or something happens with it while the power's out, you aren't a plumber, you can't get it to work again after the storm, right? And then so you have disease, you have mosquitoes, you have the lack of sanitation equipment when there's a boil water notice. How are you supposed to sanitize stuff if you like? It's every protocol changes in this situation.
Yeah, that's you know, I didn't think of it that way, but that's absolutely true. Russell, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Well, this is part of the problem with having a schmucky governor, because of course he wants aid, and of course you should get it. But a lot of people are pointing out when he was a congressman, he voted against aid for New York and New Jersey in the aftermath of Sandy. You know, the people of Florida should not suffer for that. But of course, that's coming up now. Now that there's a hurricane in Florida, of course he wants that aid, and I'm sure he'll get it. But there's going to be a conversation around that you wouldn't have had if it wasn't this governor asking for it, DeSantis.
Well, the interesting thing about that is, I mean, Chris Christie, when Hurricane Sandy hit, that was days before the Romney versus Obama vote.
Yeah.
And there was wide speculation that Chris Christie was actually going to run against Obama that year. He ended up not doing it. But Christie was the keynote speaker at the RNC that year. And then a week before the country is set to vote, Sandy hits, and Christie, you could tell, just threw Romney right under the bus. He goes up to Obama, he starts hugging him and shaking his hand. Thank you, Mr. President.
That was very infamous,
because he was clearly thought, okay, Romney's not going to win anyway. I'm going to run in 2016. Now's my chance to look like I'm this great leader who's willing to extend an olive branch to my Democratic nemesis president who I almost ran against. And part of him was probably thinking, God damn it, if I had run against him this time, I may have won, because this hurricane is hitting 5 days before people could have been wanting to vote for me if I do a good job, right? So there's all kinds of things like that. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a real test for him. And obviously, we want Florida to get all the aid that it needs. I mean, this is an absolute humanitarian disaster.
All right,
and
so let's
you got to wish him luck there.
let's
take
a look.
I want him to succeed so badly. I want him to be good at this. Show me that you're not full of shit, guy. Like,
right. I mean, the same thing when COVID hit. We all wanted Trump to do well. We all wanted Trump to lead us through it.
Did I believe it was going to happen? Well,
Trump,
no, we got what we got. But I wish.
Unfortunately, you might be in for a similar thing down there with this guy. But
yeah,
we'll see. I mean, the thing now is this is happening. I mean, if there's any bright side to the timing of this, is that this is happening a month before people are going to have to go vote for him if he wants to win, and the polls are not that tight, but they're also not a runaway. Like, it is conceivable he could lose if he botches this.
So let's take a look at the land shark.
Russell has the shark queued.
Oh, we pulled up the land shark.
As an old Saturday Night Live fan, you don't see this every day. You don't see the actual land shark every day.
Yeah, my wife Amanda showed that to me last night. That's it right there. Yeah, a little fin. I mean, these are the images that everybody said was, were going to become commonplace, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of Florida is at sea level. It's not any higher. In a lot of places, our beaches go right into it. This was a predicted 12 to 18 foot of storm surge is what they were saying, and it kept tracking down. So we had this high predicted storm surge, which they warned us about that for a while. But what Lee County, where I'm at, didn't expect was for the storm to turn in here. For those people who expected the track to stay on a track, anyone who's watched these things happen a couple times, it moves constantly, and I'm hypersensitive to those things. And we had 24 hours from evacuation notice on Fort Myers Beach, where the water was high enough for sharks to swim on the road. I think this was Naples. And that storm surge covered hundreds and hundreds of miles up the coast. I don't know if it reached up to Hillsborough, but this is one shark of thousands that were out there doing that thing. Like, it's insane the scope of the storm. It like just rode up Florida, and then in South Carolina, I still haven't even seen.
Zach Boyles on the YouTube chat here says he just got electricity an hour ago. I'm assuming you're down there in Florida, Zach. I hope you're doing well. I'm honored that one of the first things you did after getting your power back was tuning into our show. That's very flattering. So thank you. But I hope everything is going well there.
Hopefully you don't live to regret that decision, Zach.
Yeah, right.
The night is young.
Tony C says, Lula fucking leave, Ray baby. Yes, we are getting to the Brazilian election results. We'll be monitoring those throughout the stream. That's a big story, and so we are going to stay on top of that, but we are going to keep Joey here for a couple more minutes if we can, because I did want to ask you about the 1-year anniversary of your labor experiment. That story went viral about a year ago, right? I mean, pretty much almost to the day.
It was I made the post September 29th, and I planned my normal 5 or 10 likes, and then just go on about my day and whatever. And then I was hoping to hear from you guys soon about that, or talk to you with that, and then this happened and got in the way. But I did follow it up with a lot of actions. My grandma and I and some people did the walk for living wages. We walked 15 miles down the street for $15 an hour, just to try and get awareness out there. And if you look back at when I made the post and the Joey Holz experiment started, and to where it came to now, like, all of the thousands of comments that were trying to say that it was, this can't be the case, that can't be bullshit. They hadn't even come up with the term Great Resignation yet. They didn't. The PR spinners hadn't even gotten to it, right? Like, nobody was talking about it. And then all of a sudden, for the past year, the job sector and the way that jobs are found and the way that these numbers are reported and the way that employers and employees treat each other has become one of the biggest topics, right? Like, in my world, that's the microcosm I've been living in the whole time. It's the amount of support that came from people and the amount of things I learned from what I did with the experiment, and finding out personally that I wasn't like, I always felt like this was just happening to me. And then, you know, the No One Wants to Work group came up, the anti-work group came up, the Reddits, and it all really, it took on a life of its own and I got swept up in all that, and nobody's really taking that type of shit anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's wages have gone up. The unemployment numbers have gone down. People have changed jobs. They've switched to different parts of the workforce. A lot of people retired. Let's not forget, a lot of people died of COVID, right? Like everything is changed. But the ways that shitty employers treat their employees hasn't changed, right? Like the horror stories are the same horror stories. They're just they're coming to light more often, right? And that's, if anything came of everything that happened in the past year, just reading at least one story a day about, you know, someone telling her boss to fuck off, it's changed my life for the better. You know what I mean?
Well, but
Yeah.
with what the Fed is doing, and I don't think this is the reason that they're doing it, but this is going to be the effect of it. They're essentially driving the economy into a recession. And at that point, how many people are going to be able to say, take that job and shove it? How many of these gains that labor made during COVID are going to be reversed very quickly as soon as the economy really tanks as a result of these rate hikes?
I mean,
Go ahead.
that's going to be yet to be seen. But for myself personally, you know, I would rather any day be without a job than allow the types of behaviors, because I'm industrious, right? I'll figure it out. People that aren't going to have that option, it's already hard on people. And then
Right.
look at
Right.
the strains of like this hurricane and everything. Like it's going to be tough, but the peace of mind for myself personally, it's worth more to my time than any amount that a shitty employer can pay me. And you know, it's nice to see more people do that.
Yeah, I mean the market has changed so much. I applied for a job last week. I went to a job fair, and you know I got it. I've just been doing gig work and stuff for, you know, just on the DoorDash apps, the Uber Eats, the Instacarts, and you know I hustle, and I actually do pretty well at that. But you know I figured it would be nice to have a job that doesn't beat my car up too much, a job that's, you know, just there, you know, all the money's profit, whatever, and
Did
know,
you put on a tie?
steady. No, it's a nursery delivery job. So basically be, you know,
Oh,
delivering plants. to
Still
people. So
delivering,
it's- yeah, right, exactly. But
Nice.
they asked me what I wanted. The manager said, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
I don't know. Yours first.
No. Well, so the guy asked me, the
Yeah,
hiring
you've
manager-
really got to come up with a title like food transportation engineer or something.
right. What is it? What would that be? Botanical logistics coordinator. That would be
okay.
that would
There
be
you go.
That sounds,
That
good, right?
sounds pretty
Yeah.
dope. You could help me figure out what to do with some of these trees.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Maybe I'll come down there with the trailer. But they interviewed me at the job fair. The hiring manager for that department happened to be there, so he takes me out. He shows me the truck. He shows me what I have to do, and he asks me. He says, "What's the wage that if you got, you would not immediately start looking for another job?" Basically saying, "What's the lowest wage you would work for to the point where you would feel like secure in this role?" And idiot that I am, because I've been hustling the past, I don't know, 7-8 years. I haven't had a W-2, just like, you know, regular job like this. I'm always used to being lowballed. First of all, I've never been asked that at a job interview. How much do you want? They always tell you, yeah, we'll start you out $14.50, whatever, right? This time he's asking me what I want, which, first of all, that puts you in a bad spot because you never want to throw out the first number, right? If you're, you know, negotiating with someone, you never want to go first. So I throw out a number that I'm thinking, okay, this isn't really high enough, but I don't want to scare him off by saying something too high and then he doesn't hire me at all. So I feel like I lowballed myself. And the day after they called, they said, we are offering you the job at the number that you cited. And I'm thinking, fuck, I should have asked more. But I'm not.
That's exactly what happened to me.
But I'm not used to them saying, yeah, okay. That's never happened for me at a job before, where they ask you what you want, you tell them, and they say, okay, sure, have it. I felt like, God damn it, I could have gotten $3 or $4 more an hour. Now I'm feeling like an asshole for taking the job in the first place because it pays less than what I'm doing now. And it's less in terms of like, I have to show up when they want me there rather than the gigs. I just turn it on whenever I want. Right. So I'm really kicking myself.
Well, so why do you want to do this? I thought it was a step up. What do you want to do?
It's not. I don't know that I'm going to. They give me 5 free T-shirts for orientation. So maybe I'll just take the T-shirts and disappear. I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
you can use them for cloth diapers for the kids. Exactly. But you can. We'll come back with a number. Look, I'll show you how you negotiate. I used to drive a horse and carriage, and New Year's Eve, basically you don't really want to be there, and any ride you're going to take, they got to pay you top dollar. So I have this Italian guy comes up to me. He wants a ride to Cipriani from Central Park. So for people here, this is from 59th to 42nd Street. There's about a 3/4 of a mile ride. Comes up to me. Hey, how much you take me, my friends, Cipriani? And I just came up with a crazy number to make them leave me alone. So I was like $1,200. He goes, okay, so can you pick us up right here? Like, okay. Wound up
you
getting
could just walk the horse down the street. You don't have to walk it in a park. You could just walk it down, Lexington Avenue to Cipriani.
Yeah. I took him to Cipriani's across from Grand Central
on a horse. You just walk down on a horse. I've never seen that before.
I got with the tip. I got $1,500 out of those guys.
It's a good fare.
Yeah, man. That's it. Just
Uber
sometimes
should have horses in the city. Uber horse.
Uber horse.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to deal with PETA. But it is not the job it was in my day. That's why I'm not doing it anymore and haven't for like 11 years. But that works sometimes. Come up with, okay, I really don't want to do this, but this number would make it worth it. And they'll probably say no, but I really don't give a shit if they do.
I was hoping they'd say no, actually, because I really didn't want the job. I was expecting them to
nobody wants to work, right?
No,
we don't want to work.
Give you this. We'll give you this minus $4. Right? Nobody wants to work. I don't want to work. I was hoping they would lowball me and I would be able to just say no and be done. But they came and they met my offer. And what I was saying, Joey, is I've never had that happen. And it was like this weird thing. And that is a signal of how much things have actually changed. The manager said he hadn't had somebody interview for this job in 2 weeks. I was the first guy who showed any interest in the job at all in 2 weeks. And so they met my fucking number.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I might pull one of these. I might pull one of these.
My first application.
Sorry, go ahead.
My first application for the Joey Holz Experiment Part 2 was to this pizza joint, right? And I put out some more applications, whatever. I get the email I get back from them. I was literally the first person I sent my resume to ended up being, and I walked in, talked to the guy, I make a pizza. How much do you want? I give him the number. Okay. And I immediately kicked myself right in the face. Should ask for more, right? I'm like, they said yes way too quick. So I'm like, okay, this is different than the experience I personally experienced last year. Now, I was also not applying at the particular brand of job I was targeting last time, the people screaming no one wants to work. I was like, I'm looking for a job that I actually want right now, so let's see what's out there. And I've slung a number of pies. I'm pretty good at it, so usually I can walk in, make a pizza, and get a job. It's usually that easy once you can make a pizza. I don't know how the New Yorkers might not like the way I make them, but in Florida my pizza making skills are good enough, right?
And
it works.
So lover, not a pizza snob. I mean, I appreciate the New York slice, but I'll eat gas station pizza. I'll eat Sam's Club pizza. Sam's Club pizza is actually
fuck
excellent
that
pizza.
Shit. What are you out of here?
I just ate. Hey, I ate pizza rolls. They were the best pizza rolls I've eaten in at least a week. Having the power back.
The only reason New Yorkers eat pizza outside of New York is to complain about it when we come home.
Absolutely.
We like to keep a mental Rolodex of what's wrong with the pizza we had in that place, so we can commiserate with other New Yorkers about it. I had pizza in London.
That makes perfect sense.
They put corn kernels on it. It's true. They do that shit there. Not even like shucked from the corn, like from a can. They'll throw that
Ugh.
on top of a pizza. Yeah, it's like, what do you?
Oh wow.
That's just an unforced error. That's just what you don't even have to fuck up your pizza like that. So yeah, I've never had pizza properly made outside of New York. And of course the Chicagoans are gonna go, oh, what about Chicago? Okay, man. When I want to order pizza, I don't want to order lasagna. Okay. It's good,
Yeah.
but it's not pizza. It's something else.
That's
good,
true.
so
I can't
fuck you,
do the
Chicagoans.
thick ones. I can't do the thick pizzas. I'm not a deep dish guy. I like them thin and hand tossed, brick oven. That's my preference. I think the New York pizzas go too big.
Here and open a pizza making collective or something.
Oh well, yeah, we'll open Florida pizza. Show all you New Yorkers how the Southerners do it. But no, it's
have like alligator toppings, that kind of thing. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, that'd be
Fried
pretty good. Some
alligator.
Cajun
There'd be
seasoning.
a crowd for that. Yeah, throw some Cajun on there. Right? Yeah.
But it was wild. And then I'm not even ready to go into it, but let's just say that recently things didn't go so well with that place. And then here I am. After this storm, after starting at 8 years old with Andrew, I've talked with you guys a little bit about it. Like, I've been through a lot of these storms, and there's like a way you're supposed to react and treat each other. And and I can positively say that there are a lot of people in our area coming together and doing that stuff. And then there's people who aren't. And then I'm going to be one of those people out coming together doing stuff for people, right? I'm going to get out there and do that. I didn't even have a chance. Like, they expected me to be there as this storm was closing in on us. And I'm like, I need to prepare the house for the storm. Like, I'd prefer to evacuate the area. I don't have that option. So like, but you want me to be there right now cooking pizza? I don't think that's a safe decision. So I'm not going to choose to do that for myself. So and things like that. And I think from there, I wasn't willing to literally come to work instead of preparing for the hurricane. So I guess no one wants to work, right?
Yeah, right.
And here we are.
Right. No one wants to die anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are people dead, right? And I know they haven't even gotten through half these areas. These houses that were, I don't know if anyone wants to think of like 12 to 18 feet for scale, how many, that's halfway up your second floor in the city, right? Like,
wow.
Think of that high of water off the concrete.
Oh, yeah.
That high?
There were storm surges that high. Yeah. Those flattened images of Fort Myers Beach, like it was to people's second floors of their houses. There's buildings wiped off their foundations with people in them. And some of those people are still missing, and some of them have been found in roof collapses afterwards when power comes on in places. Fires happen. There were images of a trailer that was burning in the middle of it, surrounded by water. You're like, so it can't spread to the trailer next to it, but it's just disintegrating in the rain, right? Because combustible materials and all of these extra factors that you never really think of. Like, you get an earthquake, maybe was that 10, 15 minutes, the thing happens and it's done. Like,
right.
That's to a certain extent. There's other longer last. It takes a while to find people and get them out of there. But you take that one spot or whatever, you spread that across the hundreds and thousands of homes across the state. It's just it's a lot to process. I think we're losing light out here.
Yeah, we'll let you go. But before you do, tell everyone where they can find your stuff, where they can follow the continuing Joey Holz experiment, and how they can help people down
Joey,
in Florida.
I just want to ask you think all the recent transplants from Goldman Sachs that you got are getting a taste?
I think they're reconsidering.
Now? You think so?
I think they're reconsidering. I'm like, all these motherfuckers that ain't been here for this shit yet are going to be begging to go back to the offices up north. We're done here. Right. Like that. I hope so. Cause it was a lot, but yeah, everyone that's not already liking or following the Mohawk Joey page on Facebook. I'm also Mohawk Joey on YouTube. There's links to all my stuff on there. I've got the website, www.mohawkjoey.com. And that's also where I have access to the Pragmatic Anarchist podcast. It turns out journalism's hard. I don't get episodes out nearly as often as you guys do, but The experiment part 2 that I was working on has concluded, so it's time to report on that.
All right. Well, we look forward to it, and we'll reach out to you as often as we can, but don't wait for us. You're welcome to come on anytime, my friend. So whenever you have something, shoot us a message, and we'll get you on here.
Absolutely. And as far as for helping people in the area go, I always smaller county-based organizations and churches are always my first recommendation, as opposed to dumping funding into the Facebook donations or the Red Cross funds. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you can reach out to local organizations like that in the area, and churches are the best about it, and restaurants that are giving out free food or whatever. Mine wasn't one of those. But the hundreds of them that are doing the right thing for people, they could really use the support. And that's always what I say. The people that are giving people the helping hands first. And I'll do what I can to keep you guys and everyone abreast of what's going on as as we rebuild here and move into election season and see what happens with all that. It's gonna be 2022 has been a interesting year, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Very unpredictable, as they all are now. All right. Well, Joey Holtz, great to see you again, my friend. Stay safe.
You too, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Stay safe, Joey. Thank you, man.
Thank you, bud.
You as well, dudes.
Bye-bye. That's Joey Holtz, everybody. For those who joined the show late, the reason he was outside in the dark there is because he has about a dozen people in his home who he is giving shelter to as they attempt to recover from this storm. So he's a great guy and always fun to talk to. And we thank him very much for making time, especially under those extraordinarily difficult circumstances. So Joey is awesome. Check him out, mohawkjoey.com. All right, let's talk a little bit of media. I do want to give an update, though, on the Brazilian election results because Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, was ahead in all of the pre-election day polls against incumbent, really just one of the most despicable human beings in the history of the planet, Jair Bolsonaro. And the way this works is this is round 1 of voting. If Lula wins 50% outright tonight, or obviously if Bolsonaro wins 50% outright this evening, then one of those two will clinch the election and there will be no round 2. If no one cracks 50%, it'll move on to a second head-to-head round. As it stands right now, you have a very, very close race, much closer than a lot of people expected, I think. And that is unfortunate because Lula did have a big polling lead going into this. Only 70% of the vote is in. Now, we are not going to try and bullshit you guys into thinking that we understand Brazilian politics. So when we look at this map here...
I do.
Oh, you do? All right, so let me ask you something.
That was my minor.
All right, well, then let me ask you something.
No,
what's
I'm kidding.
going on here down in Mato Grosso? No, I know. I'm joking. I was calling your bluff. I was calling your bluff.
The weather is lovely.
Yeah, right, exactly.
There is try the crab.
Right. So, we don't know how to read this map in terms of like what vote is still outstanding. Obviously, red is for Lula this time, and blue is for Bolsonaro. So this time, see, down in Brazil, they flipped it. The red is the left party, and the blue is the right. So obviously, you have Lula running up big margins up here.
That's why we call it Bizarro World.
Exactly. Well, it's Southern Hemisphere. Everything is mirrored.
Yeah, everything's mirrored, right? Yeah. I was in Australia. The toilet really does go the wrong way. It does. It's very strange.
All right. Well, we are going to keep you guys updated on that, and we are going to do a segment on this because there's some stuff that I do want to read regarding these results. If Lula does win tonight, if he crosses 50%, that will be a monumental occasion. That will be perhaps the biggest victory for the left worldwide in decades. I mean, this would just be a phenomenal night if that happened. So we are all pulling for that. Lula got backed by Pfizer, I heard. What's that about? I'm not sure. I had not heard that.
They did a really interesting segment about this on with Ryan Grimm and Colleen Jasinski are now over at Breaking Points, talking about how this has got to be the first time that the United States is not backing the right wing coup. That's not the side that they're on because Bolsonaro's branding is wrong. He didn't kiss the West's ass enough. He's too much associated with Trump. And right now you've got the anti-Trumpers in power. So they're supporting Lula, but they wouldn't be supporting Lula if he were really a radical, no matter how they felt about Bolsonaro. So I don't know about Pfizer, but I do
when you
know
say
that
they are supporting Lula, who do you mean?
I mean the United States. The United States has made it clear that they will support his election, that they're not going to send in the CIA or anything.
Well, right. Well, but that. Oh, yeah. But hold on a second. I mean, that's different from endorsing Lula over Bolsonaro, right? That's different from actually expressing a political preference. It's one thing for them to say, because look, Bolsonaro is saying he might not accept the results if he loses. So what I've heard is that yes, we are willing to accept the results if Lula wins, whereas in Bolivia recently, we didn't, right? In South America, when a socialist wins, we tend to not accept the results. Right. So for that reason, yes, this is a little bit different, but that's still a far cry from full-throatedly supporting Lula's candidacy, which President Bernie Sanders probably would have.
Sure, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know about Pfizer in particular, but they do say Lula is basically a former radical turned more or less neoliberal.
I think Lula. I mean, the thing about Lula is he's not a hardcore Marxist of any kind. He's a social democrat. I mean, Morales really wasn't a socialist either. Social democrat, also. So yeah, no. So these are. It's not like Che Guevara's on the ballot down there. No, but he is. No,
this time.
I mean, he's a democratic socialist / social democrat. He's a Bernie type. Bernie is not really a radical either. I mean, his whole pitch is that what he's saying is not radical, right? I mean, while we're on this, why don't we just do this segment now? And then we'll close with the Trevor Noah stuff. So, one of the things that I think, is interesting because you see, even in corporate media, despite these nods to the idea that, yes, we will accept the election results, because that's what they're really worried about, is just a global trend of just democracy not mattering at all, where if you're the incumbent president and you reject the results, you stay in power. And now what? Now they have to coup you back out to get you out, to actually have the will of the people uphold it, right? And so we saw in the New York Times earlier, and I screenshotted these because it was like, one of these things where, like, at the top of the day, they say, live updates, from the vote. So you don't know if an article that's up there at noon is still going to be up there now, right? And so let me ask, am I spinning it? Well, what am I spinning?
Pizza?
Yeah, I'm
talking about pizza.
I would like you to tell me what I'm spinning. I will happily respond if you clarify.
She's working for Bolsonaro.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
His agents are everywhere.
Right. But we did have the New York Times, do what I think they would have done were it Trump and Sanders, right? The sort of elite take, the ivory tower take, is that both Lula and Bolsonaro are radicals. They're both problematic. And I just want to read this clip from the New York Times because this is corporate media framing. This is exactly what we would have seen. Oh, they are the same, Coke or Pepsi? All right. Well, thank you for clarifying. Okay. I won't even respond to that now because what I'm about to show you is enough of a response here. From the New York Times. On Sunday, Brazilians will cast their ballots for their next president, hoping to push Latin America's largest country towards a more stable and brighter future by deciding between two men who are deeply tied to its tumultuous past. The election is widely regarded as the nation's most important vote in decades, historians in Brazil say, in part because the health of one of the world's biggest democracies may be at stake. The incumbent, President Jair Bolsonaro, is a far-right populist whose first term has stood out for its turmoil and its consistent attacks on the electoral system. He has drawn outrage at home and concern abroad for policies that accelerated deforestation in the Amazon rainforest, for his embrace of unproven drugs over COVID-19 vaccines, and for his harsh attacks on political rivals, judges, journalists, and health professionals. The challenger, former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, is a left-wing firebrand who oversaw Brazil's boom during the first decade of this century, but then went to prison on corruption charges. Those charges were later thrown out. And now, after leading in polls for months, the man simply known as Lula is poised to complete a stunning political resurrection. So right there, the idea that, just that clever framing, they're looking to the future by having to choose between two figures from its tumultuous past. One of them is a right-wing populist who believes in deforestation. They didn't mention this in the article, but torture. He has come out specifically for torture.
He was in the military under Brazil's military dictatorship.
A woman accused him of rape. He told her to her face and then bragged about it in a hearing later to the same woman that I didn't rape you because you didn't deserve it. All right? Wow. This is a demon. I mean, this is a demonic human being. This is one of the lowest pieces of scum on the planet. So the idea that it's
and also,
but hold on, I have a little more to read. Sorry, you can go ahead. I'll queue up the second.
People might not. Well, I don't. Maybe you're queuing that up. People might not know about how much Glenn Greenwald had to do with bringing Lula back.
That's the other part of this. Yes, those
if that's what you're queuing
up,
up,
he wasn't just pardoned. It's not like his sentence was commuted. The charges were thrown out. They were annulled. So the idea that he has this shady past,
the judge
is
was collaborating with the prosecutors.
Right, the judge was in cahoots with the prosecution. That's like saying that, what was the guy's name? Denzel Washington, the boxer. Bob Dylan.
Oh, the Hurricane Carter.
Hurricane Carter. What was his name? What was his first name? I forget his first name.
That I forget.
That's like saying he had a troubled past. Oh, he has this checkered past. No, he was wrongfully convicted of a crime he did not commit.
Right.
And now he's free. Anyway, you can go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on the Greenwald angle. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, Greenwald, when he was at The Intercept, published text that hackers had gotten out of the judge's phone, showing that the judge was running the prosecution of Lula. And they actually tried to prosecute Greenwald, and it got thrown out remarkably, given some of the corruption going on in this entire case. So Greenwald at least played some part in getting Lula freed. This is why it's really remarkable to me that you'll see who was the guy who made a name for himself just trashing Donald Trump in press conferences, and he became like this resistance hero. He was on. He was the CNN guy. You know what I'm talking about?
He got his Jim Acosta.
Right, Jim Acosta. Right. They'll praise Jim Acosta, and those same exact people hate on Glenn Greenwald. Can't stand Glenn Greenwald. This guy is more of a journalist than Jim Acosta could ever hope to be. This man was in Brazil under the kind of man who would respond to the woman he raped in the way that you described, uncovering his political corruption and not fleeing the country and risking arrest under a man who was in the military at a time that you had a military dictatorship that tortured people in the country. That is fucking balls, man. I would not shit, man. I might publish it. I wouldn't stay there. I wouldn't stay in that country. No fucking way, man. I've seen Kiss of the Spider Woman. I wouldn't risk winding up in a cell down there. He did.
Absolutely. No. And it's funny how like all that you said, yet people still say he's a right winger. He's a fascist. He's a closeted fascist.
Right.
We have Ed on the chat here. Ed, if you want to unmute, feel free, and I will admit you anytime. Ed is one of our patrons, Patreon members, and paid Substack subscribers to call and access to this show.
I just want to say what Bill is bringing up here about Steve Donziger. We really need to do a show about that because, yes, you're right. What they did to Steve Donziger is fucking outrageous.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a corporate prosecution.
Yep.
Basically is what that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so absolutely true. So anyway, let me just read this one more slide here because the New York Times continued. Mr. Bolsonaro, 67, wants to sell Brazil's state-owned oil company, open the Amazon to more mining, loosen regulations on guns, and usher in more conservative values. Mr. Da Silva, 76, promises to raise taxes on the rich to expand services for the poor, including widening the social safety net, increasing the minimum wage, and feeding and housing more people. Again, these are two extremists, right? They're just as bad, really. I mean, this is really unfortunate that they have to choose between these two equally horrible options. One of them who wants to rape the rainforest and the other one who wants to house people. What a tough call they have to make.
Now, what's the source here you're looking at?
This is the New York Times.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
This is the New York Times.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the framing that they will always embrace. You know, right-wing populism and left-wing populism are both bad because they're both populism.
Right.
They're both, right?
They both involve people who are not us and our friends.
Right.
And
they
the
both involve appeals to majorities of people who are of a different class status than we are and are therefore less equipped to decide their own futures than we are. And we should decide the future, not just for ourselves, but for them as well, because we're smarter than them and we know better than them. And we ostensibly
are the
about
experts,
them, even though, of course, we don't.
They have science. We have the science. And
right.
There's a very big difference.
You saw Lula pull millions out of poverty during his first tenure from 2003 to 2010. He's running on that record. You saw him. I mean, he was, like I said, he was a very accomplished social democrat. He's not a revolutionary communist, but he's a social democrat. And he's the closest thing to a Sanders-type leader that you will probably have in our lifetimes anywhere in the world. And he was very successful as an executive. And they, like I said, they sabotaged his party and implicated him. And then once they let him out of jail, once it was found that it was a corrupt prosecution, he decided to run again. And now hopefully he wins once again. And that would be a great triumph of justice if he wins. And no, they are not Coke and Pepsi. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know what to tell you there. Jair Bolsonaro says into a microphone, first of all, that thing he said that he didn't just tell the woman, I didn't just tell them I didn't rape you because you didn't deserve it. He repeated that to her face at a hearing when challenged about it. So he just openly said that in public, right, on a mic. He has said the Amazon rainforests are not the lungs of the world. They are the national treasure of Brazil, which means these are our trees to do what we want with them. Global environmental,
that's very
Trumpy. Be damned.
That's
right.
Trumpy.
But the thing is, he's a fraud even by his own metrics, because he puts himself forward as this populist nationalist, leader. If you're a nationalist leader, what kind of nationalist presides over a country that is one of the global leaders in food production and yet renders half of his own people food insecure? Half of the people of Brazil are food insecure, and yet Brazil is one of the global leaders in making food. So if your country makes all this food, yet half your people don't have food, what kind of fucking nationalist is that? It means the food's going somewhere else, and it's not getting to your own people. Isn't a nationalist supposed to want to feed his people, not export the food for the profits of certain people in his country?
Well,
and mostly out of his country? Right? So the guy is just a complete disaster, even by his own standards. And that's why he's in so much trouble. Because COVID deaths were out of control there. Inflation is out of control there. Wages are down. That's why he is as vulnerable as he is. And we've said it a million times on this show. Right-wing populism is a tough thing to beat. That's why he's running surprisingly close now. So it's not easy to knock a guy like that out of office because these nationalist appeals, these social conservative appeals, have real landing power. I mean, we think of like CRT as this uniquely American thing. No, they say the same thing down there, not so much with race, but gender, right? He's running against the transgender ideology and the gender, sexuality in the classroom.
Are they having that in Brazil?
He's running against it. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to pretend that I know exactly to the extent to which that is causing parents headaches down there, but apparently enough to the point where he can run on it, and he has run on it, And so, look, these guys are tough to beat. Absolutely. But if Lula wins, that is at least a proof of concept that one way to beat them is with social democracy, not with neoliberal globalist bullshit, which is what we run against them here.
Yes, of course.
Hey, someone stepped up. Someone stepped up. Virtuoso gave us a $2 super chat. Lula is leading. Yes, he is. He is. Let me.
What about the rest of you?
You cheap fucks!
Was that a sound drop that you just put in?
That was a Newt sound drop.
Oh, that's cool. That's
you
nice.
Cheap fucks!
There you go. What is that from?
I don't know. I just found it.
Oh, there you go.
It's from an anime.
Awesome. All right, Lula is getting closer to that 50% number, so this is starting to get a little bit more exciting here. Looks like Pepsi is opening up his lead. Actually, I should say Coke because he's red. Bolsonaro would be Pepsi.
Well, this is really, and this
Coke Coke is opening up a lead.
This is what all the hellbots never wanted to acknowledge. They didn't stop Bernie Sanders from running because they thought he would lose. They stopped Bernie Sanders from running because they thought he would win. And Bernie Sanders winning would have been the end of the gravy train. All these useless consultants, kinds of people who didn't send Hillary to Michigan, they got bills to pay. They got kids in college, right? They can't have Sanders win. That would be the end of their whole fucking scam. You have a whole consultant industrial complex that is dependent on making sure you never, ever, ever get someone even in Sanders' neighborhood running the Democratic Party.
Right. No, that's very well said. Zach fleshed out his argument here a bit. Lula seems to have built himself as anti-Bolso, which has had him ignore all the non-Pfizer sponsored studies showing increased harm and rejecting off-label, low-cost, low-risk alternatives. I'm assuming you're talking about COVID remedies and things like that. Like I said, my friend, I'm not going to bullshit you guys and pretend that I have checked every nook and cranny of his record. I will look into that, and I will give you a response next week. I'm not going to do live research now and have you guys watch me read. But you got my word. I will look into that, and I will
let me lecture you on this thing I just read and demonstrate my mastery of knowledge.
Okay,
one thing I will say, I know you're a big pussy, so you might not want to do it, but I.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that support.
We kid. This was. We should have actually done a segment on this because this was, and I'm not gonna prep for this on air either. But if you said anything against these vaccines, you were a monster, right? You were a monster. You were the worst, lowest form of human being, and a lot of women were saying that it was messing with their menstrual cycle. Oh, you anti-vaxxer. Now studies are showing that the vaccine messes with their menstrual cycle and it's in their breast milk. If you said that, I probably would not have said that on the show over a year ago because I would have been afraid we'd get kicked off YouTube.
Right.
Now I know enough people have segments about this on YouTube that we're not going to get kicked off for me saying that. But yeah, look, I mean, there is more going on with it. I'm vaccinated. I'm boosted. I personally, for my choice, I didn't want to take that chance myself. But yeah, Did I feel the entire time that they're not really able to say with confidence that this is absolutely safe in the way that they are? Yeah, I always felt that way because by definition, there are no long-term studies. You can't possibly say
Right.
this is safe long-term by definition. It was rushed out and given to everybody. You don't know in 10 years if there are going to be complications from those vaccines. That's just a reality. And now we are seeing more and more of what they denied turns out to be true.
Zach says, Bill, this time's a bit of a toss-up because Big Pharma is behind Lula. Look, I mean, I think if you're talking about that within the context of vaccines, which you seem to be getting at, you know, I think it is a bit. I don't know what word I would use for this, but I think it is a bit narrow-minded to assume that because pharma is backing one candidate over the other because they are pro-vaccine and the other candidate seems to be pretty hostile to vaccination, that means that Lula is in the pocket of Big Pharma. Like, I don't think that logic necessarily computes there. Let me go to Nebraskan. You recommended something last time, if I recall. Maybe it was in a message or a comment about the Labor Party's sabotaging of Corbyn. There was a documentary that you recommended we watch, and I do want to watch that. But Coke versus Pepsi would be Dems versus GOP, or Tory versus New Labor. Corbyn's Labor was sabotaged. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think Lula represents something different enough to the point where he's absolutely worth backing over Bolsonaro. Virtuoso, I'm going to check 4chan to see if anyone's losing their collective shit that Bolsonaro is getting blown out. Is he getting blown out? Bill says that there's a big jump in Lula's lead. This goddamn Bloomberg site does not refresh unless I refresh it. And so what I'm seeing here, latest numbers on Bloomberg, still 47.6, Lula to 43.9.
New York Times isn't doing live on that because usually they're pretty good about moment to moment.
Yeah, I see live updates. Let me just see if I can get live results because they're doing all this commentary. Yeah, they're now reporting, the New York Times is now reporting, Bolsonaro outperforms the polls as Brazil election appears headed to a runoff. So that sucks. That sucks if this is not settled tonight. I'm still not seeing any numbers here from the New York Times. I'm still seeing all their commentary and pontification here. But I don't see any live results numbers. Lula is he's winning. But it seems to me from the Google results and the Bloomberg results, which I'm following here, 94.47% of vote selections accounted for. Lula 47.6 to Bolsonaro 43.9. If that's what 94%.
Oh yeah, that's
in,
not yeah.
Then it's going to go to a runoff.
It's going to a runoff, sure.
It's going to a runoff. Let me just bring this up so everybody can see what we're talking about here. Lula 47.6, Bolsonaro 43.9 down there, 94.47% in. That means Lula has to pretty much get all of the outstanding vote in order for Lula to clinch, which looks like that's not going to happen. That sucks. That really blows. That really blows. Like I said, I don't know where all these other votes are expected to go if it goes down to a runoff between Lula and Bolsonaro, but we will have to see. And, Bolsonaro outperformed the polls, as the New York Times said. Russell, you brought up our friend Lauren Steiner's comment. Good to see you, Lauren. Thanks for watching. Ryan Grimm's been tweeting about it.
She's an actual friend of the show. A lot of times when we say friend of the show, it's like when Pete Buttigieg said black people endorsed him.
Oh.
But,
right.
But in
Lauren's
this case,
she
is an actual friend of the show.
Virtuoso says, what is considered outstanding? I don't know where the outstanding votes are coming from. That Bloomberg map didn't even have, like they have here in the U.S., where it tells you what percent from each state or precinct is outstanding. But the fact of the matter is, if he needs 2.5 more points, he needs to increase his margin by 2.5 over the course of 5 points, which means he's got to win 3.8 to 1.3. Like he's got to basically get almost 3/4 of the remaining vote in order to cross that 50% threshold. Virtuoso says Lula needs super delegates. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Could use a few super delegates. That is true.
That's what we should write a letter to Greenwald to start advocating for super delegates in Brazil.
Right, yeah. For super delegates in Brazil. Bill says big jump in Lula lead. Seems his districts are definitely ones coming in late. That's true. Absolutely. Unfortunately, it still looks like it's not enough to clinch this evening. All right. So I'm glad we covered that. Let's do our segment on Trevor Noah here and the Daily Show. Ed, did you have anything to add before we go into that segment? Do you want me to admit you? Yep. He said he turned his mic on. That's a signal that he wants to talk. Ed, what's up, my man?
What's going on, guys?
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good to have you back calling in again.
Big Ed in the house.
From Central Ireland.
What's going on over there, man? You guys eating your babies yet, or you still got heat?
No, I still have it, but see, there's a lot of data centers here in Ireland, and I think it takes up like 40% of the national grid. So like they're saying that during the winter we could be getting into blackouts and stuff. So
Yeah,
scary stuff.
yeah.
So
I keep saying support for the war in Ukraine is not going to survive the first dead German to die from cold.
Yeah, well, I don't know actually. Someone said I think the Germans might be all right during the winter because they bought a lot of gas and stuff from Qatar and places like that. And I know people who live there, and apparently they should be all right. But I suppose little old Ireland might be a different story.
Yeah.
Why is that? Is that just because you're more dependent on the Russian gas?
Well, like they hold there's no central planning here. It's just all over the place. Like
you're in the Republic of Ireland. You're in the Republic.
Yeah, in the Republic. Yeah, I'm here in Tipperary. That's where I am.
Okay.
But like we rely on Britain so much, and like everything that's going on there at the minute is kind of affecting us too. So it's but maybe we should be all right, hopefully. But yeah, no, it's not fucking even like it's crazy. Talking to I know people who work with Ukrainians that rehome here. We took in a lot now, but like some of the stuff that they've been going through is crazy too. Like they see their family members being killed and they just have to come here then and just resettle, like, and like it's fucking nuts.
My daughter's in England. She says it's getting pretty scary over there.
Yeah, well, like they're in a worse place because of like the prime minister, because she's a fucking idiot altogether. Like what's going on there is insane. Like I don't think you realize how good in the States you have it, because your currency is so strong at the minute. Like I think the dollar's been on like a 30-year high. Like even when I went, like you're on parity. You're on parity now with the euro, which means you've way more buying power compared to us. And it's nearly the same now with the pound. So like, there's a reason why the dollar is top dog.
Well, that's and that's going to make things very hard for a lot of other countries, particularly third world countries that are carrying a lot of debt because they can't pay it. But also, historically, the dollar being that strong has usually been a pretty sure predictor of an economic meltdown. It happened before the tech crash in 2001. It happened before the financial crisis in 2008. So it's the value of the dollar will come down probably with a crash of the global economy, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's It's fucking crazy times. Like it's even thinking about how long ago it was since the States pulled out of Afghanistan. It's like nearly 10 years ago. It's the new stuff. It's how fast the world has turned around. It just seems unbelievable. I think.
Well, I'm of the opinion because I wanna make everybody all warm and happy inside. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have World War III within the next couple of years. It's
Yeah.
between tensions with China, tensions with Russia. It seems pretty inevitable to me that there's going to be a chain of events that's going to lead to the Third World War. I mean,
Yeah.
it feels like this is kind of the beginning of it.
I know what you mean. It feels like a bit of like you're nearly suffocating already. Like.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, it doesn't seem in a position to reverse itself before it gets to that point.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
What
Like,
would put an end to it?
right, right. There doesn't seem to be the will to try
Right.
and turn it around before it gets to the point where you can't turn it around. And once you're at that point, then you are in a world war. And then the only way out is through, not back. Right. And so, yeah, I would have to say, unfortunately, I agree. Lauren said, I rewatched my show from March 4th called The Russian Invasion Was Not Unprovoked. I talked about how this was all done to prevent Europe. I caught your line edit there, Lauren, in the next comment. To prevent Europe from being more dependent on Russian gas. I'm convinced they sabotaged the pipelines. The U.S. doesn't care who suffers to topple Putin. This latest was catastrophic for the climate. I'd love to have you on soon, Lauren. We could talk about this more because you really were on this beat from the very, very beginning. So were we. We weren't as well spoken about it as you were. I remember as the invasion launched, we just went on and basically screamed for an hour about how insane this is, and you know, that was one of our worst.
Did bad Russian accents.
Yeah, that was one of our worst reviewed episodes. People thought it was just too chaotic, and it really was. I mean, it was just like Neil Young once released a live album. I think it's called Weld or Arc. No, I think it's Arc, where it's just amp noise. It's just guitar noise. It's a half hour of noise when he's warming up. That's like what that episode was because our opinions weren't very polished. So Lauren did a better job than we did. But we were on that page, and so were you. So yeah, we should do a show as a team one time soon. It's been too long. Alrighty. So Ed, we're gonna start this next segment. Do you have anything else to say? I'll remove you for now, and then if you want to talk again, just turn your mic back on.
No, it's all good.
Okay, cool, man.
Thanks.
All right, we'll see you soon. All right, he's there. All right, let's do a this has been a very somber show here so far, but let's.
It really has, man.
I mean, how could it not be? You know, we have to respect.
We're yeah. I mean, we're talking about hurricanes and sharks swimming through neighborhoods and World War
very
III.
high stakes election that did not go well tonight. You know, I mean, it didn't go as bad as it could have, but it didn't go as well as it could have. So that sucks. So, the mood is a little down. I would say. So let's finish with some commentary on TV comedy. Russell, you saw that this week Trevor Noah is stepping down from his post at The Daily Show, and you thought we should do this segment, so you go first.
Well, to quote the famous, I'm not sure which anchor actually said it, or was it an anchor? What did Gerald Ford say it when he assumed the presidency after Nixon retired? The long national nightmare is over. That's how I feel. Trevor Noah retiring is the end of the long national nightmare. He drove the show completely into the ground. Stewart regularly had 1.5 million viewers. By the time Noah retired, I think he was down to about 363,000 viewers and was placed 13th out of 13 in late night. So, we often, this is one thing. Okay, here's a positive note. We often rail about, oh God, how can people be so stupid in these shit libs? I mean, there weren't enough of them to give him better ratings. So how many people really did not realize how worthless his commentary was and how stock and formulaic. I mean, he just turned the show into MSNBC with jokes. I have always said with Jon Stewart, God bless him, man, but I'll never forgive him for Trevor Noah. Just getting an African American South African. I mean, did that make you feel better about some white guilt thing? Like, because you had African Americans on your own staff who could have done better. Like, why did you have to go and get him? Why didn't you hire Larry Wilmore, so one of your own people? Like, why did you get
they
this
did
guy
give Larry Wilmore a show.
They
on
did
after,
they
and
did give him a
canceled
show.
also.
He also had Paul Mooney. He would have been very
he'd have been
interesting. He would have been a very interesting host of the Daily Show. Like, why Trevor Noah? I still don't understand it, especially when he first started. He clearly didn't really know American politics or have any particular passion for it. Like, I don't know why you'd want a non-American even in that job. Like, why would you want, unless they'd been here for a very long time, like long enough to have a real passion about it. From what I understand, he came right from South Africa and came over and took over this American political show. Like, would you hire an American comedian to go handle the equivalent in South Africa? Like, it wouldn't make any sense. The whole thing just, I never understood why he chose it. The disconnect between how audiences felt about Noah and how the elite critics felt about Noah, that's typical. You see that everywhere. Oh, he's getting Emmys, but he sucked. Nobody liked him. No, obviously. His retiring here is very it seems very face saving. Yes, it's time to retire. Yeah, man, when you're 13 out of 13, it might be time to retire. Obviously that's not how he framed it, but I can't imagine that he didn't look at the ratings and say, I better go.
Yeah, I mean, I think his show sucks, and I don't think he's very good on it. He does not challenge establishment narratives the way Jon Stewart did on that show. But I also think there were two factors that were working against him and working against the show, and that's part of why I think Jon Stewart left, because I think Jon Stewart recognized that these two factors are going to be working against programs like his, which were, one, a lot of comedic commentary was moving online. YouTube was booming, around 2015. And also, Jon Stewart was very perceptive as a guy who's obviously very, very smart and very, very funny. He realized that Trump was actually going to be bad for late night comedy, not good, right? Like most people would think, like your natural tendency is to think, oh, wow, Trump is rising. There's going to be a ton of material here. But Stewart, just like the South Park guys, Matt and Trey, they said, look, we did the thing where we made Mr. Garrison dress up as Trump, so we got a few digs in there. But like generally, we're going to stay off this topic because it's too easy. It's too obvious. Comedy can never be obvious, right? When an audience senses the punchline coming, they don't laugh at it, right? Comedy is all about surprise. It's all about finding ways to make...
The hashtag resistance was very good at laughing even when the punchline was coming.
Well, because it wasn't real laughter. It was virtue.
It wasn't
signaling.
Exactly.
Right.
That's why
it was entirely performative.
This is why I hate to go see Shakespeare comedies, because they're not funny by modern standards. The only time the only time there's any genuine laughter is when the performer is so talented, like Robin Williams level talented, that they could read the phone book and it would be funny.
Right.
But at that point, it's not the play, it's them. They're funny. So, but you get people laughing, but it's not, you're sitting next to them, you're watching as you like it.
That's the way to signal to their friend that they understand the Old English. You're right.
That's it. They just want everyone to know that they understood the iambic pentameter. That's it. That's it. Right. Oh my God. It's like a spike in my fucking head. Like I can't go watch it for that reason alone. Look, Frank Arroyo, he's a Shakespeare hater. Thank you, Frank.
Oh, Frank Arroyo said, how'd 60 Miles North do at the film festival? Well, thanks for asking. I'm going to pass that along to my friend Eddie. Frank is friends with me on Facebook, so he saw my picture. I went to the premiere. It was the first time I had been to a movie since my kids were born, because between dodging COVID and being a parent, I never had the time to go to a movie theater, but I
Yeah,
did.
I saw that
this past
picture. You
week.
better do something about that tire, brother. It's not healthy.
What's
we want
that?
you. We want you around.
No, I had an undershirt on. That's why.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah, that's why.
That's a likely story.
Yeah, no, but
It
that's
was-
actually true.
it's the old undershirt trick.
No, it was an undershirt. It's because I was layered. That's what it was. For real. But anyway, it went great. His film was great. Eddie's a great friend of mine for a long time. The guy has a huge heart, and it came through in the film. He's a great actor. He really put together a great cast, and he sold out both screenings, and I'm sure he got very high audience scores because both audiences really loved it. So hopefully he wins some sort of audience award, and that helps catapult the film. But thank you for asking, Frank. I will pass it along to him, and I'll keep everybody updated on what becomes of that film and when it becomes available to watch, which it will become available to watch soon in some form. They don't know if they're going to try for a theater thing or put it on a streaming, so you don't know. That's what the festivals are for, seeing where it can go. My dad says Trevor is an enormously talented asshole. His impressions are as good as Russell's. Does he do good impressions?
Mr. Weiss, we consider your comments at this point basically the Hanukkah card into which the money goes.
Yeah, right.
So if you're going to comment,
right, and pony up, right?
Impressions
it's like
do
giving
not
someone a birthday card with no check in it.
with
Just says
no
happy
check.
birthday.
I hate that. I swear to God, from childhood conditioning, when I get a card, as soon as I crack the envelope, my finger goes in there to see if there's any cash.
Frank doesn't believe me when I talk about the undershirt. That's what it is.
That's what I'm
It
saying.
was my undershirt.
I don't buy it.
I had an undershirt, a t-shirt, and a button down on top. I was 3 layers. 3 layers.
Yeah. Noah might be able to do good impersonations. Nobody ever said Rich Little was a great political comedian, right? I mean, it's what are you doing those impressions in the service of?
Yeah, I mean, look. So, getting back to the segment, I think like you said, comedy in the age of Trump was all about virtue signaling that you hated Trump, right?
Right.
I mean, the moments where Trump was fun.
Ooh, Stephen Colbert made a very graphic cock-sucking gesture referencing Trump. Ooh,
yeah. Your mouth is Putin's cock holster.
That was it.
Oh,
that was
if
it.
only Biden were Putin's cock holster, I think the world would be a much safer place. I think we need another cock holster as president. In fact, I'll vote for anyone who says my mouth will be Putin's cock holster. If I'm elected president, I will deem this area right around here Putin's cock holster. This is what I mean. These fucking imbeciles. Oh, you're Putin's cock holster. Why?
I will write it with
Why?
lipstick.
Because he took him seriously as a nuclear power who we couldn't just, push to the brink of nuclear war? I mean, just complete fucking lunacy.
What?
And
All the people who pushed Russiagate, they're not signing up to fight in Ukraine now. They're not lining up at the airports. They have the opportunity. They'll take anybody.
I'll take anybody.
Go ahead.
They'll waive all the visa requirements.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. They need people.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you got your war now. Go.
Right. Look at all the craziness. Everybody thought we were crazy when I remember Jimmy Dore was talking about Hillary starting a war with Russia if she won. And everybody, oh, you're fear-mongering. Oh, you think? Well, all right, here we are. Syria would have been probably the theater for it back then. Now it's Ukraine, but here we are. Just nonsense. But the other thing that perhaps Jon Stewart sensed, and perhaps he didn't, was that to attack Trump, to take the cheap shots against Trump, was to do the bidding of the very, very real deep state, the very real political establishment, right? I mean, that's all a very real consideration for a comic. If you're a comic, you can never represent the establishment. When you represent the establishment, you're not funny anymore.
Well,
you're not funny anymore.
They all remind me of Stanley Tucci in the Hunger Games, where you're this entertainer for fascists, right? Like, oh God, the girl on fire. That's what they all remind me of. Like, they just celebrate power. And there's nothing entertaining about that. It really plays like state TV. That, this is comedy under totalitarianism, right? Oh, let's joke about all the people who are not conforming to the narrative.
Right.
Right? Like never punching at the people in power. Absolutely never. Always hiding their flaws. Maybe just to make it look good. It's like, it's like a fixed fight. Like once in a while, they'll take a little tiny jab just to create the illusion that they have some kind of independent thought. But it's it's terrible. It's amazing. I see that not just in late night comedy. I see that all through the arts. I see it all across the arts community. I put up a very inflammatory post last night because I saw somebody I know. I don't know if he'd want me to say publicly, but somebody I know who owns a theater did a poll asking what people preferred, because I know he's having a hard time getting audiences back into the theater. Do you prefer X, a policy of everyone has to be vaccinated? Y, you don't have to be vaccinated, but everyone has to wear a mask? Z, both? Or F, no restrictions? And I think one person said F, and pretty much everybody, it was X or Y, a lot of Z's who wanted vaccination and a mask mandate. And look, for me, having come out of the kind of bohemian New York downtown theater scene, that's a disgrace to me, man. Like the people who are most likely to be involved in the arts all across the board, they're all shitlibs. The shitlibs just overran the entire art scene from the high to the low.
Well, because to answer either or, I mean, that's like, I guess in their mind, they figure, well, if we're going to project our concern for public safety, we kind of have to go all the way.
Right. Well, that's it. Like, there's no more punk rock. Like, there's just no more. And look, I'm not being insensitive. Like, if you have a medical condition that you need it, sure. But these are mostly young, healthy people answering this. So what are you talking about? This is just virtue signaling. That's the problem. And that's why I say it's from high to low, because it's Broadway's having this problem, as well as what independent theaters there are left here, which are not as many as there used to be. You're going to struggle with audiences because you have the wrong audience. Unfortunately, the audience for New York theater are the ones most likely to care more about hygiene theater than theater.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's true to a certain extent, but then on the other hand, you have the tourists, who are filling the Broadway theaters, and a lot of them are MAGA people, right?
That is true, but it's not enough. It's not enough. They're closing 4 Broadway shows, and Broadway's been running at about 60%. I mean, there's a problem across the board. And when I was just down in NOLA, they didn't have that problem. Clubs were packed. Right. Nobody, not a mask in sight. Nobody's. Look, past a certain point, if you're, and we're not anti-vaxxers here, I think they downplayed the risks. But at the same time, as I said, for myself, I felt the reward outweighed whatever risk there was. I never believed there was as little risk as they said, but I was willing to take it. But okay, we're past that now. We're done with that now. People who want to be vaccinated are vaccinated. Enough. Like, how long are you going to play this game? Like, let people go on with their lives. But you look at who, like, the last people who really are going to cling to that, it's the shitlibs. And unfortunately, those are the people today who have dominated the arts community. Like look at who gets published. You're never going to see a Charles Bukowski get published by a serious publisher again. It's and I don't say because he was a straight white male. I say because he was writing from this very working class, lower class perspective. People like that don't get published by major publishers anymore. This is what I mean. Like, the entire arts community has kind of been overrun by a shitlib sensibility. And these late night comics, they're a reflection of that. They're a very high end, multi-million-dollar level of it. But it's very sad to me seeing that extends all the way to the bottom, man. Like, you don't have that rebellious spirit in the arts. And maybe it's because it got so expensive to do it in cities that you just don't have people with that kind of fuck you attitude who are even able to afford to be involved in it anymore. I don't know, but it's a reflection of an overall trend. You do make a good point, though. A lot of this has gone online, like where I see the people with the fuck you attitude. Yeah, it's people like Ryan Long who have or do very well on YouTube. Like they have a very big following, but those people will not get jobs at Comedy Central. If somebody with different politics had the numbers that Ryan Long has, Comedy Central would come knocking, but they're not going to come knocking because he's making fun of things they don't want on their show.
Yeah. I wanted to respond to Lauren's comment, but I just want to put a button on this before I do, because the other thing that
but that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
All right. Well,
people
I'll
are very
in a second.
very knee jerk.
I'll bring it up in a second. All right. The other thing that made late night comedy so insufferable in the Trump era is that they were very boxed in by the fact that, like, what's actually funny about Trump is what they'll never laugh at, because that's what gets their blood boiling about Trump. What's funny about Trump is that he is Rodney Dangerfield, who will say anything at any time to anyone for any reason, and that's fucking funny.
Right.
When he went up on like one of my favorite videos we ever did, this was before our YouTube channel went anywhere, but that thing where he went up there, and this was at the beginning of like the supply chain issues where people were starting to notice, hey, the stores are empty. What the fuck is going on? I can't buy bread. I can't just take for granted that there's going to be bread at the store. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And Trump goes up on stage at a rally and he says, I said in the campaign that if Biden wins, we're going to turn into Venezuela. And, I said it and I meant it a little bit, but guess what? It's true. And it was just him going up there admitting that he was basically full of shit about the Venezuela thing. Oh, yeah, that's just some right-wing talking point that they gave me to tell you idiots about Venezuela. Hey, turned out it ended up being true. Who knew? Who knew?
I accidentally stumbled into the truth.
Yeah, and then just admitted outright to his base, to the people who he was messaging that directly to, admitting that I was basically lying to you, schlubs, but it turned out being true by accident. Like, that's fucking funny. The stuff that he said about Mika Brzezinski when he tweets out when they went after him, he's like, they came to me at Mar-a-Lago, her face was bleeding badly from a facelift, so I wouldn't take a picture with her. Like, it's fucking funny. It's fucking funny. I mean, it's mean, but it's funny. That shit is funny. But the thing is, they can't enjoy a laugh at that because, oh my God, can you believe what he said about Mika Brzezinski's facelift? Fuck her.
Well,
Fuck her.
And what
the
they
New World Order daughter is what her nickname should be. That's what Michael Savage called it one time. I think that sticks very well. Fuck her. Who gives a shit? She could take it. She gets paid enough to fucking take it. All these people get paid enough to fucking take it.
Well, and
fuck them. It's funny. You can enjoy a laugh about that. But the thing is, these people can't have a laugh about that. That's not funny to them. That's not funny to them. What's funny to them is what they laugh at is Trump saying, hey, maybe they were looking for Hillary's emails in the Mar-a-Lago basement. They thought that was hilarious. Oh, could you imagine? Because that just signals to them that, oh, Trump is a hypocrite for stealing documents when he criticized Hillary. So doesn't this joke, that's not at all funny because it's the most predictable thing ever, doesn't this reinforce our worldview? And shouldn't we laugh to signal to each other that we're in on it? That's not humor. That's not comedy.
Right.
That's not
comedy. And they don't understand, and this is where it reminds me of the Hunger Games. They don't understand that when they project that shock and horror on behalf of the establishment, they don't realize how that plays to people. They don't realize that people actually are not on their side. They don't get it. It's really watching an out of touch aristocracy in motion. It's very, they think the people are with them, and they're not. The vast majorities are not. This is why a party is deeply unpopular, as the Republican Party keeps winning, except when you have an apocalypse, right? But we can't count on that this time around.
All right, that puts a button on that segment. Now let me just respond to this before we leave. We're not done. People are still dying. Long COVID is horrible. I'm not a shit lib. No, you're certainly not. And I don't think we're beyond it. I mean, I don't think we are beyond it either. In the sense that, look,
It's
when I
not.
was
That's
at,
not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm saying. You listen. You personally, and Lauren. I mean, look, I'm not a kid myself. You're in a high risk category, and if you feel that you need to protect yourself wearing a mask or with hand sanitizer, that's up to you. I'm talking about a theater setting a policy and asking its audience, what do you think the policy should be? And the majority of them, coming back with very restrictive policies that the whole world has moved beyond. I take a lot of tours out to the Statue of Liberty. That was like the last place where you had to put on a mask going through the security to get onto the ferry. Even they finally just dropped this.
right.
So,
I mean, I think
so,
go ahead.
so there is something worth commenting on here, that with this particular population, they are not like the general population. They are much more attached to what I would at this point call hygiene theater, unless you are in an extremely high risk category, than the general population is. And I mean, it's part of why, in my opinion, you kind of got two things going on. You're going to have a hard time pulling an audience because so much of your audience is made up of people who are just very attached to continuing to demonstrate their adherence to all of these rules and regulations. And also because the kind of work people like that produce is so disconnected from the interests, concerns, and lives of the general population that nobody's going to come see that shit, man. It was always hard to pull an audience for art. Now I think it's much harder, partly because the artists are so out of touch with anything that would have any interest or entertainment value for the average person. And I think the way they reacted to that question demonstrates it, because, and it breaks my heart as somebody who came out of that community. They're mostly hashtag resistance shitlib kind of people, man. I mean, that's what's left. They're all trust fund babies.
I mean, look, I was at the Woodstock Film Festival a few days ago. Now, the Woodstock Film Festival, that's a pretty liberal audience, right? I mean, it's about as liberal an audience as you can expect to have. I mean, it's almost redundant. It's a redundancy, basically, Woodstock Film Festival, right? The theater there encouraged masks. About, I would say a third of the people wore them. I wore one while the movie was on. What do I need to have my face exposed for when I'm watching a movie? Nobody's looking at my face when I'm watching a movie. I'm not talking to you. All things being equal, yeah, put a mask on. I don't care. I don't need to see your face. I don't need you to see my face. I don't give a shit. I don't like people that much. I don't like talking to people very much. I have no problem wearing a mask while I'm watching a movie, and so I did, because I figure, what the hell? Why not? But I do think, like, as a policy, like, as a matter of fact,
that's all I'm talking about.
Even the Woodstock Film Festival has moved away from that. So if the Woodstock Film Festival is not requiring this anymore, like, I don't think they're doing that to, sell out. I mean, Lauren posted that they're just because public health has sold out to business doesn't mean it's right. No, look, I have not gotten COVID yet.
Come on.
And I hope not to get it. I probably will get it at some point. I think most people will probably get it at some point if it remains out there. I'll get boosted in a couple weeks. But I think from a policy standpoint, it just seems to be the fact that most places are moving away from, like, mask mandates. So if you go to a restaurant, what do? I mean, Lauren, I've seen on your stuff you've been to way more restaurants than I have. I don't go out anymore. And it's not just because of COVID, it's because of my life. And I don't really like going out that much, so it doesn't really bother me. But all things being equal, yeah, I'll dodge it. I hadn't been to a movie in 4 years until this last weekend. And I only went to this one because my friend had the movie there, right?
Yeah, Lauren, you can wear a mask. That's fine. These aren't the days where we didn't have a vaccine, right? People are vaccinated if they choose to be. You can't impose that on the entire world. Okay, I'm gonna say something very controversial. Okay, life involves a certain amount of risk. Oh my God, what did he say? What did he say? Oh, some people might have to take some risk to actually live a normal life and have a normal society again and not live like we're in some kind of a fucking dystopian sci-fi movie from 1972. Yes. Yes. Yes, that's life. Yes, you cannot completely eliminate risk from life. If you feel that strongly about it, put on a fucking mask. Leave the rest of us the fuck alone. It's enough.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I'll put a mask on in a crowded room. I think when it comes to like, right. So Lauren, you were saying that you haven't stopped living your life. There's nothing you don't do, but you also don't. I mean, do you mask up in a restaurant? Because if you don't, I mean, like, you know, I think like, look, they packed 200 people into that theater I was in. I feel fine. If I develop symptoms, I'll take a test, but I'm probably not going to develop symptoms because I, you know, like the amount of like one thing that I think is lost in this is that the extent to which the country has reopened, right? That there's basically no COVID restrictions anywhere except for New York theater. And that's what Russell was talking about. Broadway theater, you still have to be vaxxed and masked to go into the theater.
No, they finally lifted it with Broadway.
Oh, really? Because back a few months ago, it was a vax mandate and a mask mandate, right? It was both.
No, I don't think they had a vax mandate. I think it was just the mask with Broadway. I could be wrong about that. It probably at the beginning. Probably at the beginning.
But I think even up further, because I was actually thinking about going to a Broadway show, and it did say that there was a vax and a mask mandate. But like the extent to which the country has reopened, shows you like actually the number of cases, even though it's still a lot, and yes, there's still people dying. The odds of contracting the virus when out in a crowded setting have to be pretty small. I mean, you have these.
They are.
Madison
They always
Garden,
were.
20,000 people packed into a room.
Sure.
Those aren't super spreader events anymore. There was a point where there were. Where it was a novel virus with no vaccine, and it made sense to not do
this. This is not that time. This is not that time. You know, we're not in that moment, and you can't expect people to continue to behave as if this is, you know, March 2020. And this is what I mean. Some people got, I think, very attached to these rituals. I mean, frankly, I mean, going a little deeper, going beyond like the politics or, you know, what kinds of people are attracted to this. We live in a really neurotic society, man. You know, people are unhappy. They're alienated. I think for some people, this triggered a certain kind of OCD and a certain kind of phobic reaction and a fear for their safety that they just can't move past, that they just can't get over. And they want to present that as virtue or, you know, and really, I think it's that the pandemic fucked with their psychology. I think it broke their brain. Like they just can't move on. Like, yeah, man, you know, maybe you'll get COVID. If you're like me, you got vaccinated. So if you do get COVID, it's probably not going to be that bad. It's probably not going to kill you. You would rather, instead of running that risk, walk around the rest of your life like we're, you know, terraforming Mars. Okay. You know, that's up to you, but don't impose that on me.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, look, I have kids who have not had much of any social interaction for most of their lives, largely due to this. And so, you know, we're starting to introduce them into, you know, social settings, and they're doing remarkably well. I mean, it's actually wild how like sure of themselves they are. They're confident, they're social, they're funny with other kids. It's great. You know, we do mostly outdoor events now. And you know, we do like, you know, swim lessons, and that's inside and unmasked and stuff. But at a certain point, like I also have to think about my kids, and they're vaxxed and they're getting boosted. Sure. They're going for their third round. And so, you know, yes, I want them to be safe. I want everybody to be safe. I still wear a mask in a crowded room. Mm-hmm. But I think
that's your personal choice, and I have nothing to say about that. I'm talking about policy. I'm talking about putting that on other people. So Virtuoso, if I got to agree with everything you believe to keep your subscription, you can wipe your ass with your fucking subscription.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, you know, I mean, that's the thing. It's not a, this is, like I said, it's an unpredictable show in that way. All right. Very good. All right, here we go. I think that's pretty much
Go
what
home
we
and
got
get your
for this
fucking
evening,
shine box.
right? Exactly. All righty, guys. Well, thank you very much for watching. This will be up on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitter. Thank you guys very much for hanging out with us this evening. Thanks to Joey Holz for coming on. We're going to clip that segment. That'll be up on YouTube. And, Ed. Sorry. I saw you turn your mic back on there. What's up?
No, I just get in on that COVID debate, I suppose.
He was kidding, bro. Hold on. He said he was kidding.
Listen, man. Have you ever looked through the comments of our YouTube? Do you know how much shit we get? They say Keaton's not a Jew. They say I'm right wing. They say I'm with Trump.
Russell, say you're sorry.
I'm sorry.
You insulted him a little bit. You got a little out of order yourself.
Yeah, you insulted him a little bit.
I did.
Whining fucking maggots.
Yeah, exactly. But it's true.
I'm sorry, Virtuoso. Listen, man, they're coming at us from all sides now.
I knew I was going to get to use this drop. I was very proud of myself for
You
putting
insulted
this
him a
drop
little
on.
bit. You got a little out of order yourself.
And then after that, he says, "No, I didn't insult him. I didn't insult him." Yeah,
No,
you did a little bit.
no, you know what? I was all wound up with Lauren over there.
She wound him up.
She wound me up.
You can't go negative on the crowd, right? That's what. Although, I mean, look, I do. I mean, I don't. I wouldn't say you can wipe your ass with the subscription, but I would say yes. I mean, people who would hit, because that happens. No, because it
does a
what
lot.
Happens is
a lot.
You'll do a video that does well, and you'll get a certain amount of subscribers out of it, and then inevitably, what'll happen is you put out the next video, and about 5% of those subscribers unsubscribe because they realize, oh, this isn't a channel that's just going to serve as my own interior monologue. They're actually going to say things that they think that I might not think, so I'm going to run away. And that happens a lot. Like, it happens a lot. When you have a big video that does well, inevitably the next week you'll have the growing pains of, like, a bunch of people leave because they realize it wasn't what they thought it was.
Yeah. Oh, they are not like my own personal projection of everything that I believe made flesh. Yeah.
Ed,
Well, yeah,
ahead.
Virtuoso. Honestly, I was a little surprised. I got some of these people I got half an eye on, but seem cool, man. So that hurt me. It got to my heart. So I'm glad we're still cool.
Yeah.
I was like, Virtuoso gets us, man. You know, he's a guy who gets us. So I was very surprised at that. Shane said calling Russell right wing is on par with saying that about Glenn Greenwald. I agree, man. But I get that particularly. I think I get that more than Keaton does. With Keaton, they question whether he's circumcised, but with me,
they call me a self-hating Jew. What they read from me is low self-esteem. That's what comes through in my broadcasting. They call me a self-hating Jew because they sense that I'm unhappy with myself. So that's what comes through. That's what they say about me.
That must be it. And with me, they
say
sense,
you're a hostile, closeted right-wing bastard.
they see that I'm a rage monster, so they just they're like that if that guy's not hiding a MAGA hat in the closet.
Right, exactly. With you, it's just more hostility.
Yeah,
you just think this guy's an asshole.
It's that. Yeah, which I definitely can be. Guilty as charged.
Frank went to a couple concerts in Portland, had a mild panic attack trying to find a pick on my Vax card with everyone in line masked up. Went to a rodeo, saw less than a handful. What, a rodeo? Yeah, I would imagine. Ed, sorry, you turned your mic back on, and then we haven't got to you yet because we had to remedy matters with one of our subscribers here.
There goes that super chat.
Yeah, exactly. Take it back.
No, it's all good. I suppose one question I had was, like I suppose, like when you look about it, when you if we were to think about it and go back in time, and I suppose a lot of people like to get hung up about the vaccine and stuff and like what we went through, but like I don't think they'd be able to go through like what you're looking and seeing what's going on in China, like a zero tolerance. It doesn't work either. Like you have some compromise, I think. So it's hard to work out. I think like what's the best measures, I suppose.
Well, that's why I'm saying I feel like we've gone as far as we can go.
Yeah.
But so Borovoy, yes, exactly. We're all going to get COVID at some point, and bonus points for the Morticia Adams. I'm a big Adams Family fan. He's got a little Morticia Adams in his thumbnail. Yeah, we're at this point. I could understand these arguments, and I respected them when there was no vaccine. But now we've had a vaccine for a very long time. If you want it, you can take it. You cannot impose on the entire world that forever we're going to be walking around like we're about to clean a motel room with the rubber gloves and the mask. Like it's just not. It's not. The juice is not worth the squeeze. It's just not at this point, given that you do have these available vaccines for the vulnerable, and the vulnerable can take extra precautions if they wish. It's not worth upending society for anymore. And I think people who want to continue to do that, I think it's psychological. I think the pandemic triggered some kind of a phobic reaction where they just don't want to let this go. And again, I'm not talking about people who have specific health risks and specific reasons to feel that way. But I know a lot of young, healthy people who, what do you mean we're going to lift mask mandates? Who are horrified by it.
Well,
Yeah.
because the thing, I mean, look, the thing that it comes down to with me is that if there were an end in sight, I could say, okay, let's get to the end. But there is no end in sight. There is no post-COVID world, right? There is no world in which it doesn't exist anymore. That nobody seems to be saying that. Nobody seems to be saying we can get to zero. So if you can't get to zero,
Right.
and it's always going to be out there,
Right.
then
We're
the
going to live like
question
this forever?
Right.
Forever?
Then it becomes a question of how you want to
Right.
live. Now, look, I will put a mask on in a movie theater forever if I feel like the reward outweighs the risk. If it gets to a point where there's almost no case, if it gets to the point where like the vaccines have really built up a tolerance to the point where it's like, catching the flu, then all right, I'll raw dog it in a movie theater, right? But until then, I'll probably mask up in a movie theater. I don't care. You know what I mean?
And again, I don't care what anyone anyone
I-
else does.
I understand that, but what I'm just saying is, like, even for me, for a guy who will do that, for a guy who will take those cautions, should we mandate that? It's hard to say yes to that because I just don't see a world in which this goes away entirely. Now, look,
Right.
I'm very lucky. I'm a married guy. I have 2 kids. I don't need to see anybody else besides them for the rest of my life, and I will die a happy man. A lot of people are not in that position. A lot of people, if you're a single person, you need companionship, you need friendship, you need to be able to leave the house without a mask on, right? You need to be able to look at another person's face. I don't need to look at anybody's face. I need to look at Russell's face because he's my co-host. Outside that, I need to see my wife's face. I need to see my kids' faces. Beyond that, I don't care if I see your fucking mouth. What do I need to see your mouth for? It doesn't matter to me. But that's me. That's me. I'm lucky to be in that spot where I have people I love around me all the time. Not everybody's in that spot. People need social interaction. That's important. That's important. And if the risk...
Especially children.
Right, exactly. Especially my guys. Right, exactly. So that's why I'm trying to integrate my guys because they're going to need that. You know what I mean?
Apparently, I'm very embarrassed. That's not Morticia Adams. It's very similar artwork, though. Somebody should sue somebody. Apparently, that's Boris and Natasha.
Oh, they stole it from him?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Good call, Virtuoso.
You're just fucking kissing Virtuoso's ass now because you upset him.
I insulted him a little bit. I feel bad.
Insulted him
now.
a little bit.
I feel bad. I feel bad now.
Virtuoso, what's your address? I'll send you a box of chocolates.
Yeah, we should. He's given us a few. He's given us a few super chats.
That's true. That's true. He has. That's true. You took that tone with a super chat donor. We're gonna have to call a meeting about that. We're gonna have to
Well,
say, "Listen."
that's why I'm surrounded by riches today.
Yeah,
choices
right.
choices like that over the course of my life. Many of them.
Anyway, I was gonna finish my point, but everybody gets what I'm saying. So, all right, I think we should wrap this up. Thank you guys very much for watching. Ed, thanks for calling in, bud. Appreciate it. Good to hear from you again.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks to Joey Holz. Thanks to everybody for a lively chat. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you all. Hold on, I lost my place here.
See, now we're gonna get kicked off YouTube.
All right. Well, just don't say anything. Take it off real quick. Hide it. Put that shit away. All right, everybody.
Oh snap! Oh snap! Hang on, we got it. Apparently, Love for Pizza not only likes Pepsi and Coke, but she likes COVID porn. Says the other night she had sex with her mask on, and that shit was hard. Yeah, I can imagine, man. I can imagine.
You're the only mask-obsessed Bolsonaro supporter in the world.
Probably. See, this is what I always say. People are very complicated.
Exactly. Right. You can't put someone in a box. Just when you think you know everything, people.
Yeah,
are
we
unpredictable
thought
way.
we knew Love for Pizza.
Right. Exactly. We had her all wrong.
Now it's like an onion. We just keep revealing more layers.
All right, let's get the fuck out of here before the FBI shows up at my door. See you later, everybody. Thank you very much. Peace out.
Thank you.
Please clap.